Chochmah is that, as we said, that there is not only that there is something to be known, but that there is something that is worthy, deserves to be known. If it deserves to be known, it means that it has principles of an atzmi, and this is the name of Chochmah. Chochmah refers directly to the etz, and this is why it is a koyach atzmi. Like we explained yesterday, the principle of names, that a name is representative of the fact that there is an atzmi quality there. Okay, so let's continue now. So we said we are on the line that begins in the word gvul, towards the end of that line. And thus, this is the principle of that which is explained elsewhere. The kasher nimshoch yim giluyim sichlim. That when giluyim sichlim, when seicheldike expressions are drawn mehakoyach ha-seichel ho-atzmi, from the koyach of the seichel ho-atzmi, not the koyach ha-seichel that has been already defined, like koyach ha-maskil and so forth, but from the essential element of koyach ha-seichel. Vehu, and that occurs. What causes a hamshoch of giluyim siklim yakoyach ha-seichel ho-atzmi? Normally, the koyach ha-seichel ho-atzmi is not aroused, it's not touched, because normally the seichel recognizes a functional situation, and therefore the seichel understands the inyan according to its parameters, according to the koyach ha-maskil. When is it that it touches the koyach ha-seichel ho-atzmi? And then sichlim are drawn from the koyach ha-seichel ho-atzmi. Ho-atzmi means it is not in a functional level. It is not sensitive to what's going around. It is into itself. And yet, sichlim are drawn from that. Vehu, and that is alidei koyach oir chozer. This is effectuated by koyach oir chozer. A few more words and then we'll discuss it. As in the example, the Gemara says that there's a Talmid hamachkim es rabbi that brings wisdom to his Rebbe, to his teacher. Oir chozer means reverberating light. Let us take a little time and understand and discuss this. When we observing anything in the world, observing a table, any object, our observation is, generally speaking, unless we're interested in something in oir chozer, but generally speaking, we are observing things from their functional perspective. What is this? What is its function? Why is it here? There is, so to speak, a context within which we understand things. What is this? It's a table. What's a table? It has such and such a function. Why is it here? Because this is a dining room, or this is a Beis Medrash. This is, generally speaking, this is the level that seichel applies to. So, so to speak, to bring this point to its natural end, the point is that we are not really forced to see the table from a table's from a table's perspective, from its own existence. We are seeing the table from a context that means that has a meaning to us. This is the gvul. There is a boundary, there's a context in which we perceive things. That's how seichel perceives everything. Which is absolutely, I don't want to kind of downplay this, absolutely a correct way of seeing it. Because everything is representative of the godly truth. And therefore, we are seeing it at this level, but there is truth to it. It's not something that is just a fleeting thing. Like we explained, the table is a true meaning to a human being, not just circumstantial. Then there is the element of chozer. Chozer means that we are identifying something not by its positive presence, what its message is. Rather by reverberation. What's reverberation? Like you throw a ball against the wall. So the ball flies, or a rock flies. It flies with the force of the throw. That's called oyer yosher. Straight. Then when it hits a wall, and it reverberates. Now here is a point to understand. We discussed it a long time ago. The original throw directed it to go in this direction, west to east. So you would think all it is able to do is fly from west to east. But it hits a wall, all of a sudden it flies east to west. What is this? What is the message there? I mean, it seems to be a very simple thing. You hit it and it flies back. The message there is that this flight was not limited to the direction. It has an inherent force. And if you stop its flight towards the east, the force will continue to function. But it will revert to a different direction. At that point, you recognize that there is a force behind it. It's not just it's going in a certain direction. Like we said many times, you're traveling, you're going in this direction, you're driving the car. Then there is a blockage, a blockade on the road, construction, whatever it is. You can no longer go in the way that you plan to go. So what do? If your perception, if your understanding is exclusively that you can go only in this direction, then you're stuck. But that's not, you're not going in that direction, you're going someplace. So if you can go to this place where you're trying to go, This way, you turn around and find a different route, which reveals a much deeper sense in your travel than just driving on the road. Where superficially, that's all you see. This chozer reveals, as I said, a more fundamental force, which in Yosher you don't see. Everything makes sense, it's fine. It doesn't make sense. Make sense of it. Put it in perspective. Find a way to relate to it. That's what chozer. Where do you get that insight? Both. Where is this? Where is the source of that force? And where do you get that insight? In other words, I'm driving on this road. Of course I can drive on it. It's an open road. Why not? I can drive on it. All of a sudden you're revealing that no, you're not driving because it's an open road. You drive because of some hidden purpose that you have. And this is just a means to get there. That already shows that there is some kind of a hidden force behind your activity. It's not only that which enables you to do things. Where does this come from? In our world, as I always point out, this becomes extremely significant. Because, I hate to say it, the addict perception that way people look at everything in the world, that everything is just, it was adjusting to a certain situation. You know, this is the evolution. If it doesn't work, do this. There's no real significance behind anything. Then there's no chozer, there is nothing there. And if I can't go to it, I go to sleep. Like I said, this gentleman, there was nothing going on, I fall asleep. As I said, I want to discuss this, so I'm going to broaden out the subject for a moment.
In the case of the mashal of the Talmud and the teacher, all chozer would be the feedback from the Talmud to the teacher.
Right. I was waiting to get to that, but since you asked, let me point out. The Talmud is like the wall holding the ball. I don't understand what you're saying. You can't come to the Talmud and say, here, this is what I understand. The Talmud has not gone through all the barriers yet. He hasn't processed all that. Therefore, you have to go down and talk to the Talmud. If he doesn't know, so who are you talking to? You're not going to talk to the wall. Obviously, you recognize that behind the facade of the wall, there is wisdom. And that's the wisdom you're talking to, the one that he is not even aware of.
Potential wisdom.
It's not potential, it's potentially developing, but it's real wisdom. It's etzem wisdom. Like we said, you find a man in the gutter, is he a human being or is not a human being? You know what I'm talking about? He's a human being. He may be the conscious not even aware of it, but deep down he is aware. And that's the guy you're talking to. How do you talk to a guy like that? There are all kinds of different ways. Sometimes you hit him over the head, wake him up. But there is a way to get to him. So I said I want to discuss it so we have a little bit of a fuller understanding of this. This is not theoretical. This is very real in our everyday life without really recognizing it. Let's get back to the table. Now a table is a board upon which we can put our things in front of us. Now this board, what we're actually using is the board. The legs we're not using. We're not even aware of the legs. We are aware of the board, and the aware of the board is somehow suspended in front of us. How it's suspended in front of us is immaterial. Conceivably, you can take a board and put it on your lap, and that becomes your table. So, the wise men of Chelm will say, yes, it will, but since it can topple over, and so you're going to find ways to make it stand. In other words, the fact that you're making it stand is an afterthought. It's not in the initial sense of this table. An afterthought, it doesn't stand, so you make it stand. And then you put up one leg, it doesn't stand on one leg, you put two legs, it doesn't stand on, you put three legs, you don't put it. And then the legs have to be even, otherwise they shuckle in. Everything is like an afterthought. There is no element of chozer there at all. It's all adjusting to the circumstance. But if we really examine a table that's standing on four legs solidly, totally reliably, we recognize from our human intellect, this is a real table. This is what a table is supposed to be. In its initial perception, concept, not as an afterthought. In its initial projection, a table is supposed to be a board that's standing solidly and holding its own. Why does it have to be like that? Where did you get? Practically speaking, all you need is a board. The sense of reality that you recognize in this table, and you say this is what it's supposed to be, is that yes, indeed, the board by you is by you also it's an afterthought. I need to put this cup down, so I need a board. But that is not the origin of that thought. The board is not an answer to the problem of where am I going to put the cup down. The table is a reflection of what a human being is. I've said many times, a human being is the king, is the prince in the world. Everything in the world is there to serve him. Everything in the world has to fit and accommodate his function. You should not have to hold the cup in your hand. He should be able to get in, to do his own thing. Like I said many times, you stand up and you hold the plate in your hand and you feed yourself. Doesn't fit. Doesn't look right. Therefore, in the initial origin, sense of a table, the Nefesh HaAdam dictates that there should be a table and the table should stand solidly in front of you. You should have no concern at all as to how the table stands. That's a table. This is the human concept of a table. This is the origin of the table. In other words, the origin of the table is not its functionality, it's reality. Functionality is a response to momentary need. Reality, this is the Nefesh HaAdam. This is the royal principle of a human being. A human being, as we spoke many times, was created and so forth. He represents a godly presence. This is where the chozer originates. In other words, like it says over here, Talmud HaMachkim Esra. This Talmud, he is not privy to, he is not, has not experienced a seichel at the seichel level, but he has the principles, the human principles. And you can draw the seichel from the depth of those principles. When the seichel is drawn from the depth of those principles, it's a completely different seichel. It's what's called seichel atzmi. Like we're saying over here, why do you need legs on the table? So the table shouldn't topple over. That's in the function. That's in the plain Ayin Yosher level. You need legs on a table so that it should be a real table.
We say that the functional reactive seichel is like seichel of a behemoth. This is not.
No.
Not seichel.
That's true. That's no. Seichel of a behemoth is not a yosher. It's true. I'm using sometimes it's reactive. It's not reactive. It is complementing. I have to make it stand. So okay. The board itself, the original board that we all understand of a table, Yosher, it's a functional thing. Where does that come from? That comes from the initial seichel order. The behemoth doesn't have that. The behemoth doesn't need a board. The behemoth doesn't need a table.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that the whole beer of the old chozer coming from the malchus of the mensch comes a table. This, I always thought, this is Oriyosha. This is how the table comes from Nefesh HaAdam. This is seichel. This is Oriyosha.
Okay. Now, Oriyosha is after that seichel becomes a seichel hamaskil. But in the etzem nefesh, it's Oriyosha. It's Oriyosha. It's not seichel at all. He doesn't even know what he needs. That's the question. Yes, that's it.
In the mashal, it's Talmud is the Talmud is the Rav is coming to the etzem seichel in the mashal. In other words, the Talmud provides the wall, so to speak, and then the Rav has to reformulate and come to the etzem seichel.
And the Rav has to dig into the Talmud and see where is the seichel of the Talmud hidden?
Right.
In the etzem.
What the Rav obviously was presenting something like the Or Yosher.
Right.
Does that mean that the Rav's initial seichel was missing this etzem? He wasn't aware of the etzem. How can it be Or Yosher if it's not connected to the etzem? In other words,
it is definitely connected to the etzem, but the Rav, I said before, like I said, what makes a person think of a table? It goes back to the etzem hanefesh. No, he sees functionally that this is how he should function. The reason he functions on this is because of the etzem hanefesh, but that's not what he is aware of. That's not where he's digging from.
The reason why he comes to that functional level is because he has an etzem hanefesh, but that's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking
That's right. Like we saw etzem. Etzem is always a very elusive thing. I said, the sun rises and it becomes light. What is your first reaction? How come it's not coming? Because it has light. Only when you start questioning, if it has light, where does the light come from? If it's fuel, how come the fuel doesn't really get reduced? Then all these kashas, this is the Talmud Amakim, these kashas bring you to see a different reality. But your first reaction is light is light. So normally, and this is what we spent a lot of time last week to point out. Seichel is a real gilui hanefesh, and it has its own parameters. To get to the essence of the seichel, that's a separate thing.
And the reason why the Talmud can't relate to the Or Yosher, but he could relate to the Seichel on a deeper level, is because the Or Yosher depends on having certain structures or whatever, already a Seichel framework.
Or Yosher means a Seichel is developed. He's sensitive to Seichel Dikinyan. He's not sensitive to that Seichel. But he is a human being. Just like I said, they find a man in the gutter. Tell him, listen, this is not the proper way to sleep. So I know what you want.
So you have to draw it from the last that.
I think so. Yes, then you have to draw to the essential reality. Listen, forget about yourself. Are you a human being or not? If he says, I don't care if I'm a human being or a cat, this is a difficult. Of course, you dare ask me that question. All right. So we entered a new arena. Have a good day.
These two words, the zehu and the kasher, how are they being used?
What?
The very initial, the first word, the zehu.
The zehu shemevur b'makim.
The kasher.
The kasher nimshochim giluyim. That when giluyim are drawn, when sichlim are drawn, geach seichel ho'atzmi. This sentence we haven't finished yet.
And the zehu is going the zehu.
The zehu, this which we just finished saying about keha or atzmi, that is bli gvul, that is alluding to this which is, or alluded to what is explained elsewhere. That when you know him sichim kam keha keha atzmi are bli gvul. We didn't finish that sentence.